Morning.
Morning.
My name's Thomas Oliver. I use he, him pronouns. I serve as one of your Board of Trustees members, and I'm happy to welcome all of you on Zoom and in the sanctuary to the Tahoma Unitarian Universalist congregation. I've been a member here for roughly 10 years, and I was raised Unitarian, a strange thing these days. And this is home to me. Unitarian Universalists are a community of people who hold many beliefs, many origins, identities, sexualities, and genders. We uphold and celebrate the inherent dignity and worth of every person, which means you're welcome here just the way you are. Love is the power that holds us together as we gather in community to seek life's deeper meanings and to celebrate the diversity of all living things. We are all growing with and learning from one another. If you're here for the first time, we bid you a special welcome. After the service, I'll be in the sanctuary over in that area until somebody draws me away because I like bright, shiny things. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about Unitarian Universalism or this particular congregation. Or if you have questions about how to become involved in our community, just ask me. There's lots of opportunity. I also encourage you to explore our website, tahomauu.com. At that website, you can sign up for our weekly e-news, which includes information about the important and fun events going on in this congregation and how you can participate. There's a lot going on. I have 3 announcements, and the first is from our minister, Margo.
So 2 weeks ago when I was here, we handed out these little hearts to people who were here so that they could write down what felt like good community care to them right now in our community. And then we posted them over there. So if you didn't get to do one of these, there are a few more up here on the altar, so it's not too late to write one to get posted over there. But one of the things that really came out of reading those hearts was that people wanted groups, walking groups, and they wanted groups to go to coffee with, and they wanted to get to know each other better. So next Sunday morning before this service at 9:15 downstairs in the social hall, I'm hosting Muffins with Margo and probably mediocre coffee. I'll practice. So that we can will be a think tank down there for about an hour about how we can better pull those walking groups and hiking groups and coffee time and craft night. We do have our walking group roster done though, but there might be more people who want to add themselves on. So this is available. But so 9:15 downstairs in the social hall next Sunday, Muffins with Margo, and you can have time for more input or find out what we already know.
Nope, I need that.
Okay.
I added to the cheat sheet. Penny, do you want to come up and make your announcement?
So along the same lines, getting to know people, the membership committee is sponsoring circle potluck dinners on March 14th, a Saturday night for adults. We meet in members' homes and it's potluck. The next day, we'll be sponsoring a potluck lunch for everybody downstairs, families, anybody in the congregation. I'll be circulating with sign-up sheets, and they'll be over there on the table later. So please sign up. A lot of people already have. People usually really enjoy these because you get to know other people in the congregation.
And finally, our DRE has an announcement.
So I've been pretty consistent about announcing this, but I want to do it again. This Saturday is when our youth group is going to be doing its walk for Associated Ministries. If you have a child that is between the ages of 11 to 17 who is interested in going here, I need their field trip paperwork. I need you to sign it and give them permission to come. And also the waiver. Thank you. That's not a requirement, if you're willing to. There's the scan code. Yes, thank you for asking that. Any other questions? Awesome. Okay, thank you.
I lied. We have one more.
Admin Sean would like to remind you all that if you have not gotten your tax statement for your gifts from last year, those are available. After the service, if you'd find me or whoever's carrying the box of those things around, we'd be happy to get you those tax receipts.
Okay. You are also invited to join us after service for our social hour over here. We have mediocre coffee and goodies. So if you're new to the congregation and want to be approached, if you pick up one of the red mugs, which holds a little bit more of the fabulous coffee, that will help us identify you. And if you're feeling shy, you don't have to. If you're someone who would benefit from a large print hymnal or a hearing assistance device, they're available at the back of the sanctuary. We want to remind everyone that our services are available through Zoom. Hello out there in Zoom world. And posted to YouTube, which means if you come up front, your image may appear on those venues. As we begin our service in this beautiful place called Tahoma by local indigenous tribes and nations, I acknowledge that we meet today on the land of the Coast Salish people, including the Puyallup tribal nation, land from which they were forcibly displaced. I honor the resiliency of indigenous people and stand with them as they continue to protect their culture, land, and water, and fight for their visibility, sovereignty, and their very existence. Lastly, please set your electronic devices to worship mode. Let us exhale deeply and settle ourselves into this holy moment of sharing and receiving. Now let us join together in worship.
Just so you know, you're welcome to come up and light a candle at any time during the service, just when the heart feels moved. And the candles represent our joys, our sorrows, our concerns. So as I mentioned, I'm the minister here. I'm the Reverend Margo Rinehart. I use she, her pronouns. I am only here 2 Sundays a month, so I don't get to see enough of you, but I definitely think about you in between. I just want to give the opportunity. I want to take the microphone out. If there's anybody who is new or newer and you'd like to introduce yourself, this is an invitation. Don't feel any pressure to do this, but we love to know who's come in, and so we can welcome you properly. To say your name and where you're from. Okay, I'll go here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Barbara Woodson. I'm a refugee from Florida. I have just moved. Truly, I have just moved here. I live at Wesley at Tahali and Bonnie Lake, and I'm alternating between you and Saltwater.
We have other friends at Saltwater.
Good morning, Greg and Amy Larson. We're in Gig Harbor. We've been here for 4 years and it's taken a little bit of time, but we got settled. And so here we are. We are long time UUs.
Welcome. We are glad you're here. Anybody else? Wow.
Hey y'all, I'm Love. I'm she, they. I'm usually down in a place called Corvallis, Oregon, but I'm up here taking care of my friends after surgery. It's kind of hard to drive and stuff when your foot's all sad.
Welcome. Glad. So glad. And I know some of you are newer faces, and it's okay to wait till you're comfortable to introduce yourselves. Yeah. All right. And before I do the reading, I feel the need to explain the coffee comment. I was not trying to imply that we have bad coffee. I was trying to imply that I am bad at making coffee, but I will practice between now and next Sunday morning at 9:15. And the staff will be super happy if I practice making coffee during the week, because then they'll have coffee available. All right. I am preaching this morning on humanism for a variety of reasons. So this opening words are from humanist minister John Dietrich from his 1934 pamphlet. He says, if we live in a great impersonal universe with no friend, and he means God, to guide, it matters tremendously how we conduct ourselves, for we are actually the makers of human destiny. We are not simply individuals who have a beginning in life and an ending, but we are the links to the endless chain of life. To us, having been committed that all life has won from chaos in all the ages past, we are the keepers. And only through us can the trust from the past be transmitted into the future. And now Charlie will lead us in the chalice lighting.
I'm Charlie Koperik. I'm your Chet chaplain today. No, I'm not. I'm your celebrant. Damn. Okay. Yeah, maybe I should have coffee. Bad coffee. Doesn't matter. Dolores is going to light our chalice today. Dolores has been a member since 1964. Which isn't a long time, but it's longer than I've been around. So. Please join me in the words on the screen. We light this chalice in deep respect for the mystery and holiness of life, in honor and gratitude for those who have gone before, with love and compassion for those who dwell among us, and with hope and faith for the generations to come. Now, if you'll stand in body or spirit and join Sheila and everyone else in hymn number 38.
Testing. Okay. Every time with this mic, I swear. Good morning. This is the part where I ask everyone to hold up their food donations that we do every week and ask the children to gather them for us as they come up for a story. This is something we do every week, and it's part of our social justice and getting the kids involved and helping out the local community. The food bank we donate to is only 6 minutes away from here, so it is literally feeding our community. Oh, score to whoever donated Girl Scout cookies. This is going to be a very happy family. All right, is that everybody? All right. So I've done this a couple of times, but today I'm reading a story that I wrote. Zach the Wanderer. Hi, my name is Zach, and I'm 6 years old. I like to ask questions. My mom says I ask a lot of wondering questions. Like, does God exist? And if so, does he fart? If God is real, why did he create us? Was he bored? If God isn't real, do I still have to be nice to my big sister? What makes a good person? And is one of those things cleaning my room when my mom says to? No. Is heaven a real thing? And if so, Is that where my goldfish went? Do we only live once, or am I just a noob playing the same level over and over again? Is the meaning of life really a math problem, and why does my Uncle Bobby say it's 42? Can God and science both be true? And can people have different truths? If God is pretend, do I still have to like science class? Why can't anyone answer my questions? My dad says he asks wondering questions all the time. That's why he is a humanist. I wonder if I will be a humanist when I grow up. Dad says being a humanist means you don't stop asking questions. I wonder if I'm already am one. The end. I know, no.
Now is the time where we invite everyone to open their wallets along with their hearts and donate to help keep Tahoma UU going. If you're in the sanctuary, you can give right in person. If you're online, you can go to our website, www.tahomauu.com. And up in the, I believe it's the top right corner of the website, there's a button that says give, and then in the middle, in the purple band, there's one that says giving. If you click on either of those, it'll take you to the donate page, and the instructions there will walk you through how to donate to Tahoma UU. We appreciate it. Thanks.
Please join me in the words on the screen. We dedicate ourselves and our offerings to the work of this congregation, weaving a tapestry of love we call community, both within and beyond these walls. Please rise in body or spirit and join us in hymn number 83, Winds Be Still.
The reading this morning is from Emerson Zorma Thompson, who says, "A Black Christian church seems an odd place for a humanist to find roots. But my humanism is freely rooted in the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church. Yes, my humanism flourished in the midst of the Bible-quoting, Bible-believing Christians who cared deeply about each other and about life itself, and who worked together to make meaning in a world in which they had been othered, marginalized, and all but rendered invisible by the pervasiveness of anti-Black white supremacy. Perhaps without even knowing it, these beautiful people of faith planted the seeds of my humanism. They modeled for me the possibilities for practicing the kind of humanism that relies upon human activity to make change in the world and to seek pleasure and joy in the struggle against injustice. They taught me that humanism is the work that we do, the practices we cultivate, that help us survive and thrive in the midst of existence. The church family of my childhood is the reason that humanism guides my life and that my life is rooted in love and care of other human beings. My humanist approach to living prioritizes practices of community, the love and care that were given to me and required of me during my childhood in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. So why are we talking about humanism this morning? And it's because during all of these harsh times in which we are living, I want to make sure that everyone has some scaffolding, some practices, and some principles that bring comfort and give rise to manifesting what we believe in, which is the things that are loving, kind, just, and life-sustaining. And along with that, many of you are newer to this congregation and some are new to Unitarian Universalism. So every few months, I'm trying to preach a sermon that is something about Unitarian Universalism so that you can have another choice on the feast table about what you might want to pursue. Because I know when I started at a church and then UU church, it was like, I don't really believe in God, but am I still welcome in here on Sunday morning? What might be here for me besides a belief in the Judeo-Christian God? So we, as Unitarian Universalists, and we at the congregation here at Tahoma, we encourage you to explore. And you get to even change your mind over time. That's perfectly all right. And this morning, I'm going to focus on humanism as a belief system for ethical and compassionate living. I am also preaching on humanism because Teresa Hall, every time I've ever said humanism here, says, thank you. So I thought it was high time the humanists got equal time. So here are a few basics if you don't know what humanism is, or you don't know enough about humanism. Humanists do not hold beliefs in the supernatural. However, they can and often do participate in other religious beliefs and practices. In our own faith tradition, we have humanist Buddhists and we have humanist pagans. With the humanist pagan community, many see the gods and goddesses of that tradition as just archetypes or story that carries a universal truth about all humans. So these stories and myths can still create meaning in humanist lives. It's also very important to know that humanism and atheism are not synonymous. Atheism is about what people don't believe. I don't believe in a God. But humanism has its own set of values, which I'll talk about a little bit more. And humanism looks beyond this idea that there's the self-conscious personal God doesn't have to exist. It is actually focused in a much more radical claim that the existence or non-existence of a god or goddess or many gods doesn't matter. Humanism is concerned with the world of human existence as known through the human experience, which makes you the expert on your own life. So they hold concern for worldly matters, and they have an emphasis on being committed to what improves the human condition in the world. Humanists see humanity as having a capacity for continuous growth and development, and that to accept responsibility for this growth and development, which sounds very much like our Unitarian Universalist principle, this responsible search for truth and meaning. I also want to clear up some language in this sermon that can be confusing. There is a term religious humanist, and then there are also secular humanists. So religious humanists also don't believe in the supernatural. Rather, it means a humanist who chooses to participate in rituals that are found in worship, rites, and ceremonies that have been tethered to religious belief at one point in time. So just a few minutes ago, I mentioned humanist pagans. A religious humanist may attend all kinds of church or religious services or ceremonies, and even reinterpret supernatural references as metaphors or poetry. I really thought about that in our first hymn this morning. There was a reference to Eden Could that just be poetry? Can it be metaphor? Can it be a bigger idea than Judeo-Christian Eden? Humanists might insert the word contemplation instead of the word prayer. And it is a Sunday service, possibly, rather than a worship service. And you're at a Unitarian Universalist service, so we encourage you to find what works for the longings of your heart. What language is the most useful to you? What enhances your ability to make sense of events and experiences, and what increases your resilience? So Mark Ward explains how being, who is a Unitarian Universalist humanist, explains how being in a religious space can actually deepen your humanist experience. He says religion is an entirely human experience, and one that where we get in touch with using some pathways other than an intellectual argument for things. In religion, we seek to address not only just what is, but also what we hope for and what we dedicate ourselves to. We rely on it to navigate the shoals of love, grief and compassion, estrangement, gratitude and disappointment, and also mystery and wonder. These rituals deserve reverence, and it demands no intervention of unearthly or heavenly forces, but invites us to be open to ourselves in different ways of living and learning. So if you call yourself a humanist, but you still want to be coming and worshiping, I shouldn't use that. If you still want to be here for a Sunday service, you may be referred to as a religious humanist just because you are in this kind of ritual space, but it doesn't change those core humanist beliefs in any way. Where a secular humanist is not likely to be here on Sunday mornings. For me, just so you know, from time to time, the question of whether I'm a religious humanist does cross my mind. But I always end up falling a little short on this point because I believe we all carry a spark of the divine within. Now, Quakers believe we carry a spark of the divine within, but for them, that is the light of Christ, which is not my belief, but I think it's beautiful that their belief about that is beautiful. But the spark I believe in, maybe it's only our pre-programmed human ability to experience and act upon compassion. And if that's all it is, then that probably would make me a religious humanist. If I see it entirely rooted in our human ability to express compassion and to allow that compassion to guide actions. And again, it would be religious humanism because I choose to hang out in church spaces and I enjoy religious ceremony. It's just been such a part of my life since childhood. But I can't go quite all the way to humanism because I'm still holding on to that divine spark. But I am deeply appreciate and inspired by the action that many humanists hold for the care of others is one of the most important things and practices in their life. The care of others and being responsible for our actions. So different forms of humanism, although it wasn't called that, date back to ancient Greece, India, and China. So pre-Christianity. Even cross-culturally, there were three pillars that could be identified. A commitment to human happiness and the communal good. So it wasn't just individual happiness. The second was a scientific curiosity about the origins of the universe. And three, denial of the supernatural. There was an assertion that gods were just created by humans, and there is a pre-Socratic Greek philosopher who suggested if horses could draw their gods, they would look like horses. I think that's right. You generalize to the experience you know. Later in the 18th century in Europe, during the European Enlightenment, there was a more philosophical basis for humanism, believing that superstition and religious fanaticism were what was holding Europe back from reform, and that meant social reform, economic reform, and free thought. Enlightenment philosopher Adam Smith believed that reason and scientific thinking could do much more to solve human problems than the religions of the world could. Let me put that in context. That's religious hierarchy, not just religious people in their day-to-day lives. So from the early roots of humanists comes this question, can you be good without God? I think any of you who've been involved in Unitarian Universalism for very long, you can probably agree that we can be good with or without God, depending on our beliefs, because we've given up that threat of fire and brimstone a long time ago. So it's not the believing or the non-believing that guides our behavior, it's our other values or principles. So humanism was growing rapidly in this country in the 19-teens and the 1920s. And it was really starting to get interwoven with Unitarianism. A group of Unitarian ministers began intentionally teaching religious humanism in their pulpits, in their churches. And again, that just means that this humanism is being talked about in a church context, but not necessarily governed by Christian beliefs. And in 1933, those humanist Unitarian ministers joined with secular humanists to write a humanist manifesto. So there are 15 points, and I am not reading all of these to you, I promise. But I want you to kind of hear how they are completely consistent with our values in Unitarian Universalism. And that one of our sources in Unitarian Universalism even says that we acknowledge humanism because it keeps us from idolatries of the mind. So the first affirmation written about humanism in a broad way is that religious humanists regard the universe as self-existing and not created. The fifth affirmation was humanism asserts the nature of the universe depicted by modern science makes unacceptable any supernatural or cosmic guarantees of human values. We didn't get our values from beyond. And the final affirmation, which I think is the juiciest, we assert that humanism will affirm life rather than deny it, seek to elicit the possibilities of life, not flee from them, and endeavor to establish the conditions of a satisfactory life for all, not merely the few. By this positive morale and intention, humanism will be guided, and from this perspective and alignment, the techniques and efforts of humanism will flow. I love that mandate in the 15th affirmation. Endeavor to establish the conditions of satisfactory life for all, not merely for a few. And can you see how this is completely tethered to what we hear in our Unitarian Universalist values now? We hear about justice, we hear about equity, we hear about the inherent worth of everyone. So I can see how easily humanists and Unitarians could be having this conversation. So humanist Mark Ward, who I mentioned before, says he uses his humanism in terms of compassion. That is his spiritual practice with it. I'm going to talk about spiritual, that phrase, I'm going to talk about it in a minute. So he wants us to expand our thinking of what it takes to make us human. A human can't just be a thought, he says. Rather, it is our capacity for compassion, how we see ourselves in relationship with others. and accept a larger duty than serving our own needs. He argues compassion is at the center of properly used thought. And he asks of humanism, how might humanists more deeply embrace this human capacity for compassion that is so central to our nature? And this is so similar to our 2024 values of placing love at the center of all we do, of the decisions we make. What does love say in this circumstance? What does love call for action in this circumstance? They went on over the years to write several other humanist manifestos, which I probably should have put on the slide, but I am not going to read. But some of that mandate went to the back, took back seat as some of these other manifestos went on. That original one about endeavoring to establish the conditions of satisfactory life for all, not merely a few. So that's where I think our Unitarian Universalist humans can partner so well and lead us so well, because the thoughts are so consistent. So if you are drawn to humanism, I want you to hold those ideals alongside our new values and our older principles. Generosity, transformation, equity, pluralism, interdependence, and justice. And it means always working toward greater fulfillment in each of these areas and for all people. At the risk of running a teeny bit long, I want to take a little segue into how this looks in real life. And here's an example from Ginger Luke, who established a Unitarian Universalist campus ministry at the University of Nebraska. I'm just trying to figure out how that even could have gotten started, but clearly it did. And she said a conservative Lutheran graduate student eventually started visiting their group and then kept coming back. I was really confused at first. And finally, he says to Ginger Luke, I think I figured it out. I think I understand you. You don't control your actions because God told you to. You do it because you think it's right. And Ginger says, yes, the reason I don't kill is not because God told me not to kill. It's because I don't want a world in which people kill each other. And I don't reject hate because God told me not to hate, but because I don't want to live in a world filled with hatred. And I love and care for people, not because God told me to do so, but because this is the kind of world I want for myself and those who come after me. Ginger Luke, by the way, calls herself a mystical humanist because she doesn't believe the supernatural, but she believes love is the strongest power in the world and that it encourages creativity, empathy, beauty, peace, and a sense of belonging and comfort. She also worked with youth, and she especially worked with youth Unitarian Universalist Boy Scouts working toward their Eagle Scout honor. And remember that controversy in belief in God as a requirement. So she said, I worked with them to try to find an understanding that they could honestly say they believed in, because truthfulness is another expectation for Eagle Scouts. We talked about that tiny part being a tiny part of something so much bigger in the entire universe. We talked about love between each other and family, and even those we don't know, who have given us so much. And not just the people, but the essence of love itself. We explored the amazing mystery of life and death. I encourage them to ponder the moments when circumstances cause them to stop and just be present. We talked about what seems to hold us when we feel so alone. And we discovered how some people consider all these examples the presence of something godlike. She attended several of the Eagle Scout ceremonies where they did receive their honor, and she heard deep reflections from these young adults that they had given this considerable thought for how it applies in their own life. So before I wrap up, I want to touch on this idea of humanists also having spiritual practices. There is a humanist who writes a whole essay about spirituality with or without God. Because if the word for spirit is really meaning the breath, then spiritual practices are life-affirming practices. Non-humanists might see a supernatural component, but it isn't required. I like to think of many spiritual practices as simply wonder, awe, gratitude, grace. Such as when we turn to wonder, we can gaze outside the limits of our immediate existence, and it helps us feel less trapped in where we are. Whether we're in nature or other beauty, deep meditation, we can have experiences that inspire and humble us, that pull at us to be more connected to all the lives in the world and care for ourselves and others. The moments that cause us to pause and try to make sense of our lives. And also to find serenity and peace. So I spend several evenings a week in a Buddhist meditation practice. And I so often find myself, I am no longer a Christian. I haven't been for decades, but I find myself going back in that meditation, back to Genesis, of God's breath on the chaos that is later created into something of splendor. And I'm not thinking about the Judeo-Christian God. I am just thinking about that vision of breath upon the chaos, and that eventually something rises, and it is beautiful. So it's a very humanist thought. So it's a spiritual, but it's also a spiritual practice. And it requires no belief in the supernatural. That can just be a story. So I packed a lot into this morning's message, and I'm running a little bit over. And I don't expect you to remember it all. So here's just the shorthand. If you're someone who doesn't believe in the supernatural, or you're questioning a belief in the supernatural, but you also hold 3 values: reason, compassion, and community. Reason, compassion, and community. Then you are possibly a humanist. I'm going to leave us with the words from Reverend Kendall Gibbons, one of the most well-known Unitarian Universalist humanists and several times honored. She's also the one that writes about spiritual practices with or without God. In the end, humanism is not a faith for the mindless, the heartless, those without integrity, or those who are merely cynical in their skepticism. It is not a featherbed for the spiritually lazy who want to believe and do as little as possible in their all too brief and mortal lives. Rather, humanism encourages those of us who embrace it to live as fully as we can, in all the authentic wonder and curiosity that the human spirit can generate. And remember, spirit being what is life-giving. It summons us to persist in obedience to evidence, to reason, and to recognize in our deepest and most beautiful longings, not the world that is, but the world that might be, if we, by our courage and intelligence and dedication, will make it so. Humanist invites us into passionate connection with others so that we may build the common good, and in that enterprise, make our own days glad. And by no means least of all, humanism summons us to gratitude, not because there is some deity out there that needs its ego stroked, but because that is how we become the most fully human. To live well is to live with intelligence and integrity, with justice and compassion, with wholeness and beauty, and finally, inevitably, with thanks and praise for all that is our fragile, precious life. And you'll get to sing that in the hymn.
Please rise in body or spirit for hymn 128 in the gray hymnal. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and deeds rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks for all that is our life. For sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks for all that is our life.
How are you doing this Monday?
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Okay, well, I could let you in. The minister is done, so it's in the finish up. So I will turn this off.
What we do with unfolding mysteries and the knowledge that science brings into our lives may or may not be a matter of divine intervention, but it is also a matter of our own determination to take full and ongoing responsibility for our world and how we live with each other in community and with gratitude as part of our interdependence. May it be so.
Please join me in the words on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And if you all join me in the closing blessing song.